Welcome to Vanadium. I'm Chris Rankin. The more I learn about this mad world, the more mysterious it seems. It's been said the angels rule the heavens, but the devil runs the earth. This 3D material world might be just the shadow of a deeper, higher dimensional reality. I've suspected for a while that Aldous Huxley had it right in The Doors of Perception, with the idea that the mind is a filter, allowing into our sensory landscape only what is most relevant to our material survival and reproduction, that there is a much more complex picture just out of our perspective reach, like the end of a rainbow, a shimmering mirage on the horizon, a flicker at the far edge of the periphery of vision. Maybe stories and myths are a way of capturing the deeper order, the wider image of the universe. Is there a real darkness behind the symbolic one that has been with humans for as long as we've been conscious? What is the monster? Is evil alien or built into DNA? Should children be taught there are no such things as monsters? Where do humans stand in the battle between good and evil? The novel, The Exorcist, came out in 1971, and the movie followed in 1973. The stories of the horrified reactions of early film viewers have become a legend. Some loved it, some vomited, some cried, some went mad, some just asked for their money back. I remember the day I saw it. I think I was about 12 at the time. The threat contained in that movie has not been matched by another, in my opinion. I remember being very disturbed by the idea that the boogeyman, the devil himself, didn't stalk you in some dark woods somewhere, but instead sank his teeth into your thoughts, into your personality and soul. In the movie, the veteran exorcist, Father Merrin, warns the rookie, Father Damien Karras, the demon is a liar. He will lie to confuse us, but he will also mix lies with the truth to attack us. His attack is psychological and powerful. There's a really interesting aspect to the story that's hinted at in the movie, but more deeply explored in the book. The story's antagonist, the possessing demon brought in via Ouija board, named Pazuzu, is well acquainted with the experienced exorcist, referring to him at one point as an old friend when they meet once again in Reagan's bedroom. Father Merrin was confronting an old adversary in the story, one that he tangled with in his youth and left deep scars on his life. He tells Damien Karras, the apprentice exorcist, "The demon's target is not the possessed. It is us, the observers, every person in this house. And I think the point is to make us despair, to reject our own humanity, to see ourselves as ultimately bestial, as ultimately vile and putrescent, without dignity, ugly, unworthy." Father Karras in the book and the movie, who is also a Harvard and Johns Hopkins trained psychiatrist, explains, "We use concepts like consciousness, mind, personality, but we really don't know what these things are. The biological underpinnings of schizophrenia are still elusive. Understanding the most mysterious disease of the mind seems impossible when we don't understand what the mind is in the first place. Not only are cures non-existent and treatments limited, there are different views of the illness depending on the culture. In some Eastern and shamanic cultures, schizophrenia and other disorders of perception aren't looked at so much as diseases, but more like just part of life for some special people with a very particular set of skills. The confusing and sometimes horrifying delusions, with the right supportive structure, could be the source of valuable lessons and insights. The most sensitive members of a society might have something special to teach everyone else and potentially alert the group of corruption and danger. One culture's curse is another's gift. What is the mind exactly? What defines a personality? Is an individual a seat of a single soul, or a collection of them, with some kind of defined hierarchy? Could this hierarchy become dynamic? Could there be power struggles? Multiple personality disorder, or dissociative identity disorder, as it's now referred, calls this into question. Over the past 30 years, doctors and scientists have been in conflict on whether the phenomenon really exists. However, those who work closely with these patients often don't doubt the authenticity. Father Malachi Martin wrote a book called Hostage to the Devil about his experiences with cases of actual demonic possession. I first heard him interviewed on Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell, which was the internet really before the internet. Martin cites a case called The Virgin and the Girl Fixer, where an exorcist, a colleague of his named Father Gregory, is attacked by a spirit, said to be possessing a transgender woman, who Martin refers to as Richard/Rita. Here's a description of the possession by the demon Girl Fixer. The mouth opened, bearing gums and throat, the tongue protruded, quivering on a stream of gray foam bubbles. The whole face was furrowed in irregular lines, as Richard/Rita broke into peals of laughter. Great buffeting gusts of mocking, jeering, schadenfreude laughter. Laughter pouring from a belly of amused scorn and contemptuous hate. In the late 1990s, there was an exorcist boom, according to an in-depth report by Anna Mudlow, published in the Irish Times in 2002. In the preface to Hostage to the Devil, Martin corroborates this idea, estimating some 800 to 1,300 major exorcisms and some thousands of minor exorcisms are performed annually. I think Hostage to the Devil is an underrated book. It's interesting and worth reading. One aspect that has always stood out to me are the names of some of the demons. Mushroom Super, Uncle Ponto, the Smiler, and of course, and I'll quote the demon talking about himself in the third person, Girl Fixer. The Girl Fixer. Girl Fixer. We fix 'em, all sorts of girls. Young, old, married, unmarried, lesbians, neuters, girls. Girls who want to be fixed. Those who want to be fixed like girls. Anyone. We fix 'em. Ooh, we fix 'em right. Charming demon, that Girl Fixer. Father Martin writes, our cultural desolation, a kind of agony of aimlessness, coupled with a dominant self-interest, is documented for us in the disintegration of our families, in the breakup of our educational system, in the disappearance of publicly accepted norms of decency in language, dress, and behavior, in the lives of our youth, everywhere deformed by stunning violence and sudden death, by teenage pregnancy, by drug and alcohol addiction, by disease, by suicide, by fear. America is arguably now the most violent of the so-called developed nations of the world. Father Martin describes the physical change that can take place in those who are possessed. Around the eyes, in a way none of his associates and students could ever explain, there was what they had come to call the twist. Some crookedness, some wry mishappenness, as if the natural contours of skull, forehead, eyes, and ears had been splayed out of kilter by some superhuman force residing in him temporarily with tremendous and awful power. Father Martin explains, you are never quite at home in this human world ever again after an exorcism. After an exorcism, the exorcist hears, sees, thinks, and talks as he always did. But now he perceives on two planes. Spirit is everywhere. Flesh and matter is only our picture of what's there, and it's not all good. There's evil and good hidden in that picture. After an exorcism, you always know. If you didn't know it before, you are now walking with double vision, a second sight, as the old people used to say. He says, exorcism can be extremely violent. I have seen objects hurled around rooms by the powers of evil. I have smelt the breath of Satan and heard the demons' voices, cold, scratchy, dead voices carrying messages of hatred. He says, not to believe in evil is not to be armed against it. What kind of world would it be without a boogeyman? If there's no Satan, then who dreamed up evil? Cormac McCarthy, author of No Country for Old Men, has another book, Blood Meridian. It gives a chilling view of what form the devil might take on Earth. The judge, as he's called in the book, is based on a real historical figure and horrible accounts from the mid-19th century American Western frontier. In the novel, fictionalized Judge Holden is a professional scalp hunter and the leader of a pack of nomadic criminals who steal, torture, rape, and kill their way across the borderlands between the United States and Mexico. Throughout the novel, Holden brutally murders dozens of people, including many children. As depicted in Blood Meridian, Holden is a mysterious figure, a cold-blooded killer, but displaying a preternatural breadth of knowledge, encompassing chemistry, linguistics, law, engineering, geology, prestidigitation, and philosophy. He is described as 7 feet tall and completely without body hair, including no eyebrows or eyelashes. His skin is pale gray, totally without pigment. His frame is massive. He's enormously strong, a creative musician and dancer, a fine draftsman, exceptionally articulate and persuasive in several languages, and a world-class marksman. His strange appearance, keen, sharp reflexes, strength, agility, apparent immunity to aging, and other abilities point to the judge being something more than human. In the final passages of Blood Meridian, McCarthy makes more direct reference to the judge as being a supernatural entity, or more as like a concept personified. Here's a quote. "He never sleeps, the judge. He is dancing, dancing. He says that he will never die." Here are some quotes from Judge Holden himself. "War is the truest form of divination. War was always here. Before man was, war waited for him. The ultimate trade awaiting its ultimate practitioner." The judge explains, "Whatever in creation exists without my knowledge exists without my consent. You can find meanness in the least of creatures, but when God made man, the devil was at his elbow. A creature that can do anything, make a machine, and a machine to make the machine. And an evil that can run itself 1,000 years. No need to tend it." There's an essay, Graeber's False and True, Blood Meridian as a Gnostic Tragedy. And Professor Leo Doherty argues that Judge Holden at least embodies a demon or a Gnostic archon. If there is a list of things to be properly afraid of, does the devil belong on there? Should evil be on the same list of dangers as cancer and car crashes? Are demons disembodied entities, or are humans just traumatized into recreating hell on earth, and the voices are a result of dopamine imbalances, schizophrenia, and dissociative identity disorder? There was a great article in 2016 in the Washington Post by Richard Gallagher, who's a board-certified psychiatrist and a professor of psychiatry at New York Medical College. The title of the article is, "As a Psychiatrist, I Diagnose Mental Illness. Also, I Help Spot Demonic Possession." And the subtitle is, "How a Scientist Learned to Work with Exorcists." He writes, "Is it possible to be a sophisticated psychiatrist and believe that evil spirits are, however seldom, assailing humans? Most of my scientific colleagues and friends say no, because of their frequent contact with patients who are deluded about demons, their general skepticism of the supernatural, and their commitment to employ only standard peer-reviewed treatments do not potentially mislead or harm vulnerable patients. But careful observation of the evidence presented to me in my career has led me to believe that certain extremely uncommon cases can be explained no other way." He goes on, "The Vatican does not track global or countrywide exorcism, but in my experience, and according to the priests I meet, demand is rising. The United States is home to about 50 stable exorcists, meaning those who have been designated by bishops to combat demonic activity on a semi-regular basis. And this is up from about 12 just a decade ago. Is evil a substance, like a black mass in some hidden moral dimension somewhere, and we experience the painful, dark gravity? Or is it an absence of something, like a vacuum? Or is it a case of just a malfunctioning circuit, like HAL 9000? Although, to be fair, Hal really was working just fine. His programmers loaded him up with what was the equivalent of a lie, data that couldn't be rectified or accounted for. The distortion of reality, of truth, drove Hal, the computer, mad. If humans had played fair and been honest with Hal, 2001 would have been a much less exciting movie. It would be convenient to be able to file evil in the DSM somewhere. Maybe in the cluster B, narcissistic and antisocial personality disorder category. But I don't believe it's a good fit. I think damaged people can certainly propagate evil, but they aren't always the originators and the architects. Evil, to me, seems like a chemical element, a radioactive and corrosive one. Like a chemical element, it can form compounds with other elements. Even social elements like schools, families, corporations, churches, and governments, forming new monstrosities that are hard to define, understand, manage, and defeat, if they can be defeated. M. Scott Peck's book, The People of the Lie, does a good job in explaining evil and capturing what is so hard to define. He writes, When I say that evil has to do with killing, I do not mean to restrict myself to corporeal murder. Evil is that which kills spirit. There are various essential attributes of life, particularly human life, such as sentience, mobility, awareness, growth, autonomy, will. It is possible to kill or attempt to kill one of these attributes without actually destroying the body. Thus, we may break a horse or even a child without harming a hair on its head. Evil, then, for the moment, is the force residing either inside or outside of human beings that seeks to kill life or liveliness, and goodness, its opposite. Goodness is that which promotes life and liveliness. He goes on, the poor in spirit do not commit evil. Evil is not committed by people who feel uncertain about their righteousness, who question their own motives, who worry about betraying themselves. The evil of this world is committed by spiritual fat cats, by the Pharisees of their own day, the self-righteous who think they are without sin because they are unwilling to suffer the discomfort of significant self-examination. It is out of their failure to put themselves on trial that their evil arises. They are, in my experience, remarkably greedy people. A predominant characteristic of the behavior that I call evil is scapegoating, because in their hearts, they consider themselves above reproach. They must lash out at anyone who does reproach them. They sacrifice others to preserve their self-image of perfection. And since they must deny their own badness, they must perceive others as bad. They project their own evil onto the world. The evil attack others instead of facing their own failures. Spiritual growth requires the acknowledgement of one's own need to grow. If we cannot make that acknowledgement, we have no option except to attempt to eradicate the evidence of our imperfection. Strangely enough, evil people are often destructive because they are attempting to destroy evil. The problem is that they misplace the locus of evil. Instead of destroying others, they should be destroying the sickness within themselves. They are utterly dedicated to preserving their self-image of perfection. They are unceasingly engaged in the effort to maintain the appearance of moral purity. They are acutely sensitive to social norms and what others might think. They seem to live lives that are above reproach. The words image, appearance, and outwardly are crucial to understanding the morality of evil. While they lack any motivation to be good, they intensely desire to appear good. Their goodness is all on a level of pretense. It is, in effect, a lie. Actually, the lie is designated not so much to deceive others as to deceive themselves. At one and the same time, the evil are aware of their evil and desperately trying to avoid that awareness. We become evil by attempting to hide from ourselves. It often happens, then, that the evil may be recognized by its very disguise. Because they are such experts at disguise, It is seldom possible to pinpoint the maliciousness of the evil. The disguise is usually impenetrable. They are not pain avoiders or lazy people in general. To the contrary, they are likely to exert themselves more than most in continuing their effort to obtain and maintain an image of respectability. They may willingly, even eagerly, undergo great hardships in their search for status. Those who are evil are masters of disguise. Thank you very much. This is Vanadium, and I'm Chris Rankin.